Okay, everyone, we're going to try this again.
Well, it's just still saying starting live video.
Yep.
It's still spinning. Up there it goes.
All right.
Now it says we're live. Frustration. Okay, this is the enemy wanting to...
Yep.
Okay. Is this us here?
Okay. All right, now we'll wait and see if everyone starts popping back on.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully they can find us.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we turn the internet off of our phones. Is it sucking too much internet?
It could be. I can do
Mm-mm. It's got to be because it's up here.
that. Yeah, but you got 4 bars down
I understand that, but I don't know. Every week, Diane says it's good now. Jolene's back. Amy's back.
there. Okay.
Sherman's back. Oh, welcome back.
Yay! I'm back.
Let's see if...
We'll give it a moment.
Give it a minute for others. Hopefully we're okay. Amy says it's much better. Okay. Praise God.
Mm-hmm. It was just the enemy trying to stop this one from
Trying
going.
to stop it.
That does not surprise me.
Goodness. You guys not eat. Goodness. She's...
Uh-huh.
Hi. Hi. You're so stinking cute. Okay. Aunt Deb's
Aunt
back.
Deb's
All
back.
right. Well, we'll go ahead and...
Aunt Deb, you let us know if it's better on your end or not.
It's
Here
still
in a
giving us
moment.
that low. She says so much better. Okay.
Yeah, because we always get that.
We always get that, so I didn't think anything
Yeah.
of it. So, praise God. We're up and running. We're going to fly with it.
Yep.
Holy Spirit, put your words in our mouths.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
befuzzled a little bit now, so pray for me.
Well, you were saying when we met.
As I was saying, we met February 28th, 1989. We got engaged March 10th, 1989, and we got married June 24th.
Right.
I was 17 and he was 20. And a lot of people thought I was pregnant. There were lots of people that was taking bets on when the baby would be born. There were people taking bets that we would never last
Yes, there was
longer
that.
than a year or 5 years or whatever. I was a junior in high school when we got married, so it was the summer between my junior and senior year. And Sherman was already working for a contract company at Caterpillar in Mossville. Sherman moved into the apartment building that my mom and I lived in. We were in the middle floor, and he and his best friend Corey moved into the floor upstairs. And my girlfriend Mary Jo and I, which she gets on here every so often, we came home from school one day, and here is this dude moving stuff into the apartment upstairs. And my friend Mary Jo is like, whoa, he's cute, I got dibs. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so, of course, we get out of the car, and we're like, hey, do you need help? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. So we helped him take some stuff upstairs to the apartment. He never once mentioned that there was anyone else in the apartment. Mary and I thought it was just him. He didn't mention a roommate, nothing. So we were there for probably a half an hour, just chatting with them, finding out where they were from and all that stuff. And Sherman walks out of his bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still tell you exactly what he was wearing, but I'll save that for another day. This blonde cutie with this great mullet.
Mm-hmm.
It was business in front, party in the back, y'all. It was a great mullet.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to dig out some old wedding pictures
Oh, that's right.
and show that tonight, because, I mean, y'all haven't lived until you've seen this with a mullet.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben says, yes, I was there.
Yeah, he sure
Aunt
was.
Deb was there. Mary Jo was there.
Yeah.
It was a great wedding. It was a beautiful wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just two young kids ready to take on the world. And take on the world we did.
Yeah.
And I did not get pregnant until 3 months after we got married.
Yeah.
So Stephen came along. We did not intend to have children that young. It was still my senior year. but it was in September, October. And so Stephen, I graduated high school on June 2nd or 4th or something like that. And our first anniversary was June 24th, and he was born June 27th.
Yes.
So that would have been a really, really long pregnancy if I would have been.
It would have been very late.
Yeah, I was not pregnant. We
Right.
chose to get married.
Yes.
So
exactly.
and we had a really good relationship.
We did.
You know, we chose to raise the kids in church,
Mhm.
and we did.
Mm-hmm.
We were best of friends.
Yeah.
We've always just Sherman and Julie are like peanut butter and jelly. You can't have one without the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just and a lot of our friends thought that it was just Sherman and Julie.
Right.
They'll be together forever. And we really kind of thought that too.
Mm-hmm.
Just like any other marriage. We had our ups and downs, but for the most part we never fought.
No.
But that was mainly because somebody didn't put forth
Yeah, well,
as much.
I don't think I knew how.
This is true. This is very true. We have learned so much about ourselves in the last 5 years
Oh, gosh, yeah.
than we did the entire 30 years prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think after Bradley came along in 94, we kind of went into survival mode.
Yeah, we did.
It was, honestly, my 30s, I really don't remember. My 30s are a blur. It was raising kids and
School functions, kids,
work,
paying bills.
trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think we kind of lost a little contact
Mm-hmm.
in our 30s. We tried to make time for each other and do the right things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really in our 40s that all hell broke loose.
Oh, yeah. Something had to break.
Well, at that point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
And, to be, a lot of you know that I'm an alcoholic. And
recovered.
recovered. And I really didn't start drinking until my 40s.
Mm-mm. No.
Bradley was...
We never drank.
Yeah.
Up until... Well, when I first met you, obviously, when you were young and
Yeah.
early 20s. But
raising the kids.
raising the kids, and we went to church and did the right thing. And we didn't really start drinking until Stephen was probably 8th grade or freshman.
Yeah, I'd say freshman.
Well, maybe younger than that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't you have the dates written down somewhere?
Not those.
Not those.
Not those.
I wanted to say it was like 2006.
Yeah.
So Stephen,
Yeah, because no. Yeah, I'd say so, because it was right after my first heart attack.
was it after your heart attack?
Yeah.
See, this is how we do things.
Yeah.
Like,
Before and after.
our lives revolve around heart attacks, divorce, separations,
Recoveries.
rehabs, stints. It's like, was this before the first heart attack or the second?
Yeah.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
We really need to just like write all these dates.
Right.
All these dates.
I know.
But we really did. We had a good relationship. We had really good friendships.
Mm-hmm. We worked things out. You and I, working together,
We're fantastic.
were fantastic. We could overcome anything.
Right. Right. Together as a team, you really can't find a better team than us, because
Yeah.
we tend to work good together. And we had really good friends raising the kids. Amy is one of those that we raised our kids together. And I don't know, I was a PTO president and served on an advisory council for school board and a room mom, and I was an at-home mom for 19 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Rob's on. And you worked, and we just kind of had, we thought we had the American dream going.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
really did. Like, I never thought we would divorce.
No, didn't
Until
see
it
that.
got bad.
Yeah, didn't see that at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But Sherman coached football,
Mm-hmm.
and we directed junior football league in Woodford County for a few years until you had your first heart attack.
Yep.
then we realized we were kind of burning the candle at both ends, and maybe we
gosh.
needed to. But then you started refereeing,
Mm-hmm.
and then when the boys graduated high school, they refereed junior football, and I coached volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were just very involved in the community, involved in church, involved with our friends, raising our kids. Like, it was when everything kind of started to fall apart. It was really kind of a shock.
Yeah.
It really was. It was hard to process it all. It's taken a few years to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what caused it, do you think?
Well, so obviously I've had years now, better actually more than 4 years to dig into this and reflect on this, and really it goes all the way back to my childhood. Is really where
all of our problems go back to our childhood.
Is really where it started.
None of us have an issue that doesn't have issues from our childhood.
Yeah,
so.
Growing up, I never felt heard.
Yeah.
I always
Seen
felt
or
like
heard.
I never felt seen or heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was. I want to be careful how I word this, but the environment that I grew up in, I felt like
Your perception
my
was...
perception, not like anyone was pushing me,
Right.
but I felt like I had to be someone that I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be perfect, never making mistakes or anything like this. It was a very pharisaical type walk,
All on the outside.
all on the outside.
You were working real hard to wash the outside of the
yes,
cup.
exactly.
I was raised that way too. We all were.
and fool everybody.
Can I get an amen from anybody else out there that was
know.
raised that way?
So, one of the other things is things were never my fault. It was always someone else's fault. And
That was a fear of it being your...
yeah, I never wanted to be blamed for anything. I never wanted to take responsibility
To get in trouble.
And
That's every kid though, isn't it?
I think it is.
Yeah.
But
You took it to a new level.
I took it yeah, and also our generation,
Yeah.
okay, feelings, there is no such thing.
For men especially.
For men especially. So growing up I didn't understand feelings.
Right.
I really didn't. So I just stuffed everything and instead of getting angry or mad when something frustrated me, I just bottled it up.
Right.
I remember I could look back now and I could see all these different addictive personalities. So I was a chubby kid growing up. Then I had a growth spurt, and I started working out really hard.
Right.
And I actually became a power lifter, not a bodybuilder, but a power lifter.
Right. Strength.
Strength-wise. And man, I just dove into that.
Smoking hot, by the way.
Yeah.
Just that I'd throw that out there. I knew him in those days.
Yes. And, so I could work out all those frustrations. And,
that's a good point.
And things like that,
Right.
And then I had an accident, an injury while working out. Even when I was very young, I had high blood pressure. Working out with that heavy of a weight caused a small aneurysm, and that kind of ruined me working out after that. It was shortly after that I started smoking. I was always looking for something. I don't know if I was looking for something, but I was always falling into some kind of addictive behavior.
Okay. Yeah.
And that addictive behavior allowed me to hide behind that addiction. is what it allowed me to do.
Yes, Diane, for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just reading.
Oh, okay. So as I got older, and then we met, you know, and had the kids, really my life became consumed into trying to be the breadwinner, trying to be the dad, raise our kids, be involved in their sports. And
Our motto kind of was fake it till we make it.
Fake it till you make it.
We'll figure it out somehow.
So, you know, really, if you looked, you didn't see anything manifesting during that time.
Right.
You know, now, between you and I, yes, we would have those long, drug-out discussions.
Till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Till 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, and I did not know how to express myself. I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like every time we got into an argument, I felt like I was never ever able to get convey my feelings,
right,
or what was going on. You know,
and that was probably one of the biggest. That was like the fight that we had over and over and over. We never really thought about anything.
We could have recorded it and just hit play.
Just hit play for the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was always, I felt like he was shutting me out.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't trust me with his feelings, with his thoughts.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, being a very expressive person, I couldn't understand how somebody didn't know their feelings, or how somebody couldn't understand those things, because I still can't really wrap my brain around that. It's something that I just have to accept and believe that was the case. And it was that there was proof that was the case. I just felt like he was lying, you know, because he just didn't want to share it, right? Like, I couldn't fathom that somebody didn't know how they felt.
Yeah.
How do you not know how you feel? And so, yeah, that was probably...
yeah. And, you know, in from my side, I truly wanted to give you that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Julie would always say, well, you need to be more open. I want you to be fully known.
Yeah, we did this marriage book and seminar, and to love, and I agree with their definition of this sort of thing, is to know someone fully.
Yes.
And to be fully known by them.
Mm-hmm.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
And that was really what I longed for. But we just couldn't quite seem to get there.
Yeah, and I got frustrated because I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and and it really showed itself when the alcohol came along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that I was going to go into was, you know, when the heart. So in 2006, yeah,
I think that's when you went up to Chicago.
Well, I had a major heart attack.
2006.
2006. It was the Widowmaker. Okay.
Yeah, that was a left anterior descending.
Yeah.
It's otherwise known as Widowmaker. You
know, and it was one of those things, and God and I were kind of fighting at this time as well in my life. Okay. You know, so I was looking.
I didn't know all this stuff.
No, she did not. So I was treating God as a formula. I'm an engineer. Everything's about formulas. And, you know, a lot of religious sermons, things like that, if you listen to them, tend to be formulas. It's a 3-point message, right? Do this, do that, do this, and you get this outcome.
Right.
Well, gosh, that sounds so easy. You know, and so that's
another point of contention over the years.
Yeah, so that is how I treated God.
You put him in a box.
I put God in a box, and what I didn't realize was I took the aspects of God that I wanted, and that's what went in my box for God. Okay, and it was a very hard misunderstanding of God. So when I had that major heart attack, why don't you explain that day?
That was a bad day. He was 37, going on 38. You were a few months shy of 38. Right. And I was 35. We had one in high school, one in junior high, and one in grade school. And Emily was 7. So our youngest, she was only 7 years old. In second grade, I think. First, second grade.
Yeah.
We both played hooky from work that day.
Yeah.
We had a long weekend of home football games that we were the directors, and we didn't have a whole lot of help from other people. So we did the work. We set up the field. We took the field down. We put the equipment away, set up the concession stand, ran the concession stand, ran the cheerleaders, ran all 5 teams, and you know, we would host extra games from other teams. And so on Saturdays, we'd have 5 games on Saturdays and 2 on Sundays. And it was a Monday.
Yeah.
And we were exhausted. And we were just like, you know what? Let's call in sick for work. So we did. And we did a husband and wife thing that morning.
Yeah. And
we were getting ready to meet Mom for lunch. And Sherman was just like, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
He's like, something's wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? And to me, Sherman was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? Like, we lived life like every other 30-something. I have 100 years to live. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. We'll figure it out. God's got this, right? And I looked at him, and all of a sudden, he just started sweating profusely. And when I mean sweating profusely, I have never seen a person sweat. His shirt was soaked in a matter of minutes.
They said I lost 5 pounds of fluid.
5 pounds of fluid. And it was like, holy crap. You got into the shower to try and cool off, and that was not working. So he got out and got dressed, and he was just like, I can't get comfortable. I just don't feel good. And he laid down on the living room floor under the ceiling fan and was just trying to stop sweating. And he was kind of feeling a little nauseous, I think, and lightheaded and just like crap. And I'm looking at him, and I swear I heard I never really heard the Lord much before that time. Heard him a lot since then, and I know that voice very well now. But I swear the Lord said to me, he is going to die on that floor if you do not get him to the hospital. And I mean, it like shocked me out of, I don't know, it kicked me into fight or flight. And I'm like, can you walk? And he said, yeah. I said, get in the car. I'm taking you to the hospital. We lived literally
2 blocks.
3
blocks.
3 blocks from Eureka Hospital. And I was working there at the time. And so I got him in the car. Somehow we got him down our back steps into the car, into the hospital. And they got him on the gurney. I mean, they just boom, boom, boom. And I was doing just fine until I heard the doctor say, oh yeah, he's having a heart attack. It's a doozy. I lost it. With that, I knew he was doctors and nurses. I knew the doctors. I knew the nurses. The doctor that was working that day had done extensive time in a critical care unit. So he knew cardiac care. The nurses that were there that day had done extensive critical care nursing. He was in the best hands, honestly, that he could have been in that day. And I finally got a hold of Mom. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I've got 3 kids. I don't have a college education. How am I going to provide if anything happens to him? Right? Like, my whole destiny and my whole world, you want to talk about a panic attack, I've never felt fear like I did that day. I have since felt more fear since then. Honestly, I have sensed more fear than that.
Yeah.
Since then. But I went outside and I just was taking deep breaths, and I'm like, okay, I choose to believe God. I choose to believe God. I choose to believe God. God, do what you got to do. Your Bible says he's going to be fine. I choose to believe God. That's all I could say. I choose to believe God. Of course, Mom was praying, and there were no life flight nurses available.
Mm-hmm.
There were no ambulances with nursing and or doctors available. Had I called 911, he wouldn't have got an ambulance.
Right.
So by me getting him to the hospital was a God thing. And the doctor there was like, okay, here's the deal. We can't get him to the cath lab as quickly as we need to get him there, because there has to be certain criteria in order to get him there in case he codes or whatever on the way. I've got this T&K, I think it is. T&K kit. I don't know. He basically explained it as roto-rooter for the arteries. He goes, it will open up the artery, but if he's got any ulcers or anything, he could bleed out. And I'm like, we don't have a choice. It could either save his life or it could kill him. And I said, I trust God. Go for it.
Yeah.
And he said he felt like an elephant was sitting on his chest.
Oh, yeah, it hurt.
You know? And that T&K did the trick. He had no damage to his heart after that heart attack.
Yeah.
It was an absolute miracle. It truly was. But it took an emotional soul toll.
Yes, huge.
On both of us, really, but really on Sherman. And that's really, I think that is where the downhill,
it is.
That's where we went over the mountaintop and started heading down towards the valley.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the reason I feel that was the downhill was I felt that I was a good person. Okay? I did so many things for others. You know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived by that motto. Okay? I was constantly trying to give of myself.
Amen, Aunt Deb.
But now here's the problem. I expected.
Well, the word says, give and it shall be given, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. So he was like, well, it says give and it shall be given. So if I give, I'll get.
That's right.
So he gave to get.
Yes, exactly.
That ain't the motive of that scripture.
No, it's not. And, you know, so I felt like everything that I was doing, I thought I was doing for God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now I have this major heart attack. You know, my whole life, you know, I felt was being turned upside down. I was still a smoker.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Well, that's got to stop. You know, I was overweight. That, you know,
I went a little crazy on that end.
like you said, you know, it affected,
It affected
you
me too. It put me in some serious fear.
And at that point, I turned inward and I got angry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just got angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry at the world. I was angry at myself. I was angry at you, and just my
Angry
job.
at God.
Angry at God, and I just couldn't get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it wasn't too long after that, maybe like a year, 2 years after that I had the gastric bypass.
Right.
You know, thinking, okay, this is going to help my self-esteem, and you know, I'm going to lose all this weight, and I'm going to feel better,
and I can exercise.
And I did. I lost 180 pounds.
Right.
You know, but now here's the problem, and here we go. Goes back to soul cleansing.
Well, let's preface everything we say from here on out. His heart attack was an outward sign of an inward condition.
Problem. Yeah.
So he had heart problems. And it wasn't just his physical thumper in his chest.
Right.
It was his heart, his mind, his will, and his emotions, his soul.
Yeah.
And so it really was a wake-up call to him that he didn't get.
Yeah, I totally missed it.
Missed it.
And I will say...
We learned this. we can look back on these situations. You know, hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah, right.
And so we can look back and go, "Oh wow, would you look at that, boy?
Right.
We missed that one."
Yeah, and I remember in the process leading up to the gastric bypass surgery, you know, they do like a 20-minute psych evaluation, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew what answers to give. You know, there were several answers that I'm like, okay, if I say this, I am not going to get that surgery.
Yep.
So I lied.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going, I have to have this surgery. You know, and there
Yep.
again, you know, that should have told me something. You know, so yeah, I had the surgery. Yes, I lost all the weight. What they don't tell you when you have things done like that, like you said, if you don't deal with the inward problems.
What caused the overeating in the first? What caused the obesity? What caused the alcoholism?
Exactly.
What caused the drug addiction? What caused
Yeah, it's just
the gambling
it's
addiction?
just going to
Whatever.
manifest itself somewhere else.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And now the problem is I've got feet and feet and feet of intestines that are no longer there.
I think it's like 6 feet.
Yeah, like 6 feet of intestines that's gone now.
Stretched your stomach back out.
Yeah, my body doesn't absorb things like a
Nutrients.
normal
Right.
person. You know.
Hi, Uncle Ben.
So, you know, it's one of those things where
Uncle Roy.
when I did drink, or when we would have something to drink, it would hit me so fast.
So fast.
But then, you know, just 20 minutes later, it would be like, it would feel like it's gone.
Right. Where I'm still going.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. And I could, you know, drink again.
Things got very. I can't come up with the appropriate word. But things got rough after that heart attack.
Yeah, I did.
Life got rough. Things got confusing. We backslid.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't really going to church much after that. Really after the gastric.
Yeah.
It was kind of after the gastric that, and I don't even remember what reason it was that we kind of quit going to church. I always kind of did my Bible studies on my own. But I could pray with you. I could give you the scriptures and I can encourage you. What you needed. I wasn't necessarily walking the walk of what I could talk.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how. I wanted to. I was trying to. And it got to the point where I got so frustrated. I would hear sermon after sermon of God provides freedom. You know, and it was really healing in our marriage. It seemed like after the gastric, we really kind of started growing. He started going more internally and shutting down and pushing me away.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. And it was very difficult. That's where really, you know, I got frustrated. And I was just like, God, I can't live this. You know, and I remember I was sitting in the bathtub one night just crying because I was so frustrated. I would hear these sermons and I would be, but God, how? Why does this work for other people but not me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is other people's lives so great but ours isn't? What are we missing? And it was just, there was a piece of the puzzle that was just constantly missing. And I kept searching for it until finally, I think, really, quite frankly, I gave up.
Yeah.
I never would have admitted that I gave up. But we really kind of started going the way of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We started drinking. We started going to listening to live bands and music and just really not putting Christ first.
No.
We put the world.
Yeah.
We put pleasure. We put anything to make ourselves feel better in the moment. We put that first.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because we'd spent so much time in church and in God, and we weren't finding that peace.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I've shared this so many times in the rooms of AA. where I remember I was coming home from work, and I was just so frustrated. I was so done, and I was actually between DMAC Road and the Eureka elevators on Highway 24. And I remember screaming out to God, I am done with you. I've had enough. It's all lies. I'm done. And I think I even used a few choice words in there as well that I won't repeat
that we
here.
don't use anymore.
Exactly. And I mean, I did. I spoke my mind. I was done. You know, and things really got bad. You know, the drinking really increased. You know, and it's kind of funny. It wasn't too long after that you know, I got the job with International
Up in
Truck
Chicago.
up in Chicago, and this was big money.
Yeah, it was good money.
It was really good money. And
I got
I'm
a
like,
scripture for that too.
I'm like, man, look at this. I told God off, and now look what, you know, happy days are here. You know, I mean, we were struggling financially.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And now we're rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're separated.
But we're separated. He's living up there part of the week and home part of the week.
Yeah.
And I was having to manage everything at home. Plus, I was working part-time.
Yeah.
And the kids were in activities. And so I was managing the home front, and he's up in Chicago drinking.
Yep. And it was. I had no accountability up there. And that's where, you know, the alcoholism really took root. Was when I was in Chicago. You know, so when I did get to the point where I knew I had to move back home,
Yeah.
you know, and took a job there right in Eureka. That job was so stressful. Everything that I was kind of promised just fell through. But I was already in it, you know. It was just a disaster, you know. And then we
the financial.
we
took a huge
really
pay cut.
got bad because I took probably a 2/3 pay cut.
It was big.
It was a big pay
It
cut,
hurt.
and
But our marriage was crumbling at the point.
it was.
You know, and so it was like we had to do something. I had no idea his drinking was to the level
Yeah, I get it.
that
really
it was. And we did not know that gastric patients are 10 times more likely to become alcoholics because their bodies don't process the alcohol like like somebody with those extra 6 feet of intestines do.
Right.
And so I know quite a few gastric patients who became alcoholics or were kind of borderline,
Yes.
you know, alcoholics. And so it was a very, very difficult time.
Yeah.
It really was. And me having to manage everything at home on my own did not help the relationship between the two of us. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
So he came home and things began to spiral financially. And we decided we needed to get out of Eureka. And moved to Morton. And Emily was just a freshman at that time. And all she knew was Eureka. And Bradley had already graduated. And so this was Emily's freshman year. And so we moved to Morton, and that really started a riff between a teenage girl and us.
Yeah.
And there was so much tension in our home at times. I swear you could cut it with a knife.
Yeah.
It was, I got a full-time job in 2014, right after we moved to Morton. And that became my sanctuary. It was peaceful. I could sit in my office and close the door. Because at home, I had Emily, who thought we were the great Satan. And I had a husband that I felt blamed me for everything. And I am a codependent with a capital C, and trying to keep everybody happy and destroying myself in the process. And so, I don't know if you guys are seeing the picture of how this road is how we're treading down to this valley. We separated the first time in 2013.
Yeah.
Right after we moved to Morton.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it was during football season.
Yeah, it was.
Shortly after that.
Season. I share this story too, and this shows you how much of an alcoholic I was at this point. Was we were separated, and it'd probably been maybe a month, maybe even 2, and you invited me to have dinner with you and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I couldn't drink
that
day. Because once you start, I can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So that I knew that much, and I didn't understand why, but I knew that I couldn't start drinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so by the time I did get to the house, I was shaking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we sat down at the table and we had spaghetti that night. I remember what we had.
God must have planned that.
Spaghetti. And I remember I'm trying to hold the fork and my hands are shaking so bad that I had to literally put my face almost into the plate and kind of throw the food up into my mouth. And in order to take a drink, I had to use both hands. And even then, my cup was and I know everyone was just staring at me.
And I don't remember. I noticed you shook a little bit, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Excuse me, baby.
And, you know, and so that, and maybe it was worse than what it actually was. That's how I remember it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand alcoholism at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, you know.
Clueless. I was just completely clueless.
And then I did.
I just did everything I could to keep you from drinking.
And after a while, I ended up moving back
in.
That didn't help. I started drinking, and then I had my DUI. 2015. I had my DUI.
Mm-hmm.
That did not go over well.
No.
You know, I was. You know, we went to court. We got the charges reduced to reckless. I think.
Driving.
Yeah.
Aggravated reckless, or something like that.
Something like that. Had to have the BAID. If you don't know what a BAID is, it's a machine that you got to blow in order to start your car, and then every 10 minutes while you drive, you have to blow into this thing, or it shuts the car off. So that was the state's way of keeping me from drinking and driving. All right.
Hallelujah! I never felt so much peace than I did that year, because I didn't have to worry if he was drinking or driving, because his car wouldn't start if he was.
Yeah, and you know, at that point, I knew that I had to have alcohol. At that point, and this really made things difficult. And it was shortly after that.
I'm still clueless that he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Keep this in mind, y'all. I had no idea his drinking was as bad as it was.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
And it was shortly after this that I lost I had already lost my job at Tri-C Company, and I was on unemployment for a while. But I got this job down in working for a group out of San Antonio with Kat. It was the same group that I worked for, International Truck. They were in San Antonio now. I did a few months up here in Illinois, and then they're like, we really need you down here in San Antonio. Well, with the way things were going with us, I'm like, maybe this will help, you know. So I packed up my car. Of course, I've already pre-planned all of this, and I made sure to take my bike, you know, because I knew if I got away, I could drink, and if I was close enough to work, I could just ride my bike to work. See, an alcoholic is always planning how we're going to drink. Okay? And, when I got there, there was a hotel. It was like half a mile from the office.
Mm-hmm.
It was very easy to get to and from. And once I got there, I rode my bike pretty much everywhere.
And it's San Antonio. It's beautiful weather most
yeah.
of the year.
And yeah, I started drinking very heavily, and it was a job I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to drink, and then they killed the whole program.
Yeah, you were like 2 months down there? 3 months.
3 months. And then they killed the whole thing. So now, here I am, packing everything back, coming back, and on my way back, the company that I worked for was like, hey, we got this opening in South Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to work there? And I'm like, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, basically, I just told you, here's what's going on. And
he went from San Antonio to Milwaukee.
San Antonio to South Milwaukee. And same thing. I got an apartment.
You left in January, it was right around January 1st of 2016. And so that was a year from...
Oh boy, that was bad. Yeah. I
would not wish a year upon my worst enemy. Because me being at home, I have both kids. I have two of the kids. Brad is going to ICC at the time and working. Emily is in high school in Morton that she doesn't want to be. She'd adjusted and by this time, she had settled in. This was a couple of years later. No. I was going to say, was that the year she broke her leg? But no, that was
the first
year. You were home. Yeah.
Yeah.
I realized at that point his drinking was getting worse because he would drunk text me or he would call me and just talk in circles and things started dawning on me that there might be a problem here. And with his DUI, it terrified me. That the court fees and all of that stuff cost us close to like $4,000 right before Christmas. It was just hellish. I lived in a constant state of fight or flight because I never knew what was going to happen with him. Is he going to drink and drive, or is he going to get hurt? Is he going to lose his job? I mean, there was just all this fear stemming from the traumas of some of the incidents and things that had happened. And I ended up on Prozac and Xanax that year. I had it one day. And my poor boss, my vice president, I went into her office and I basically told her she's an idiot and couldn't leave herself out of an empty box. Yeah, that wasn't the smartest thing for me to do. So the children's home vice president came and had a talk with me in my office. And she's like, Julie, we know. They were fabulous. I can't say enough about Melissa Riddle for this incident. She's like, you need to see a doctor. You are at your wit's end, and it's starting to show, and it's showing up in your work, and we think you need to just log off for the day, go home. And, instead of firing me, they had compassion. They understood what I was going through, and that was truly a godsend. But then I realized it kind of woke me up to like, yeah, you probably need to do something. And really, quite frankly, it did help me kind of calm because my soul was so full of fear. Constant tension, constant fear. It was just, the enemy was just hitting me because I didn't know what I was going to have to fix next.
Yeah.
Who or what was going to happen that I was going to have to manage and take care of. And I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So things just kind of spiraled out of control while he was in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and things in Milwaukee didn't get any better either.
That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
Hi, Bethany.
I found an apartment 2 blocks from work,
Ain't that special?
walking distance
It was
this
a
time.
dive.
And luckily for me, there was a liquor store across the street and down a block.
Go figure.
Right in the middle between work and my apartment was a liquor store.
How convenient.
How convenient.
I think the enemy set that up.
I plan. Yeah, I know. And so yeah, it was things really got bad there, and one of the things that happened there was, and you were testimony of this too, is, you know, like I said, anger would build up onto me. I got very angry, and what would happen is I would go on a drinking binge, and I would need to release all that anger. It was
called liquid courage.
Yeah, and Facebook became my outlet, and I would be
digital warrior.
I would be scrolling through Facebook, and I would see someone make a comment that I disagreed with, and I'm like, well, I can't let this go by, and I would just literally lambast them. And then they would respond, and then I would, you know.
And I'm getting phone calls and texts, people saying, would you tell Sherman to stop? I'm in Morton, he's in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot.
Yeah, it did. And I had more Facebook friends block me, defriend me, you know, because I would keep going until they
wouldn't stop.
Until they blocked me or unfriended me, you know.
So what happened to cause you to say enough's enough?
So what happened was I really saw, you know, things getting really bad. I realized that if I don't do something soon, I'm definitely going to lose it all. I'm going to lose this job. I might lose my life. I mean, it was just, everything was out of my control.
So what made you call rehab?
Well, it was funny. I was watching TV, and that stupid Malibu commercial came on. You know, call this number to go, you know, deal with addictions in Malibu, right? And I'm like,
you didn't go to Malibu.
I didn't go to Malibu. I did have the choice to go to Malibu.
Did you?
I did. So, and I say this because there may be people that watch this and they need to know how this works, okay? So I call the number. And
drunk, mind you.
Oh, yeah, definitely drunk. And you get a broker. It's called it's an addiction broker. And they, you know, they get your insurance information, they run your insurance real quick, and then they say, okay, here's your options. And I remember it didn't take long. This only takes minutes.
Right.
And he says, yeah, you can go to Malibu, or you can go to this place in
South Bend?
South Bend, Indiana.
Is that where it was?
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Choices in South Bend, Indiana.
Was it?
Yes. It was.
Okay. South Bend, I don't know why.
Yeah. And, you know, my thought was, well, if I go to California, I'm going to be so far away from everybody. You know, something just didn't feel right. You know, and I'm like, okay, I'll go to South Bend, this place in South Bend. And the thing is, they arrange all the transportation.
Fort Wayne.
No. That was where international.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It was South Bend.
Okay.
And they arrange all the transportation. You know, and
oh yeah, they arrange it all.
Yeah. So they set up an Uber to pick me up at my apartment, take me to the Amtrak station at the airport in Milwaukee, and then from there I take the Amtrak to Chicago, where another Uber was going to pick me up and drive me to South Bend. And this was, and I had bouts of pancreatitis before too that I failed to mention.
Okay.
And if you
like
ever,
I said, there were traumas. There's a lot of the story.
If anyone who's had pancreatitis, it is
I feel for you.
god awful. And I was prepared because I could feel stuff coming on, right? So I packed a bag, locked everything up, and get into this Uber, get on the train. I get to Chicago fine. Had a little difficulty finding my next Uber, but finally I find the lady that's going to drive me, and she's from like one of the old Soviet Union countries. And, you know, here she is driving 55 on the tri-state in Chicago. And if you've driven in Chicago, you realize you do not drive 55 on the tri-state. Okay? These cars are flying past us, and from Chicago to South Bend, it felt like it took forever to get there. And about halfway there, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to start throwing up. And I had some Ziplocs, baggies with me. And it started happening. And I started, you know, throwing up. And it was all dry heat. So that's the pancreatitis. I had nothing left in me. And all of a sudden, she started speeding up. And the more
one way to get her to move.
The more I threw up, the faster she drove. And we finally get to the place. This place is what they call a level 4 rehab center, which I didn't know anything about that, but people from Cook County Jail could come straight from jail to this place. Okay? They checked you in. Of course, I couldn't sign anything. My hands were shaking so bad that they're just make a mark. That's all you got to do. We witnessed it. Just make a mark. So I've done all this between the throwing up. You had to go through some body searches. I won't go into detail about that. But if you've been to jail, you know what that entails.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I had to. It's called
cavity.
Squatting, bending, and coughing.
Okay, let's not get too graphic. We're a Christian program here.
So anyway, they take me upstairs to detox, what's called detox. And mind you, I have no idea what's about to happen here. And they do an evaluation. They, of course, do your vitals and things like that. They did give me a drug. I always forget what it is, but it's to help with the alcohol withdrawals. And the whole time I'm throwing up, I'm waking everybody up because that's so loud.
He does not,
Yeah, it was bad. Finally, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I get into my bunk. They're little bunks, you know, and I lay down, and I mean, I'm having the most god-awful nightmares, and they just don't stop. And I mean, it was like every demon in hell was attacking me that night. I mean, it was, I can't tell you how bad of an experience that was. I mean, and the nightmares.
Did you have that the second time?
No.
The second time you
No.
No, this is just you're getting. We need maybe speed the story up a little bit.
So anyway,
we got a lot to go yet.
Yeah. So anyway, finally get past that. I learned, you know, during group therapy and stuff like that about feelings and how and what feelings were. You know, and this was a 60-day program. You know, it was long, and they lied. They said it was just 30 days, but it was 60 days. So I'm telling Julie, don't worry, it's just 30 days, you know, and then I'll be back to work because it was all about, you know, money and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I get done with rehab, you know, I'm feeling great. I'm like, I can do this. The problem with the rehab that I was in was they taught me that I have the power over alcoholism. You don't need God. Because remember, I told God I was done with him. Okay? And by them saying I had the power, I don't need God, that was good enough for me. And I went 3 years without drinking, doing it on my own. But the problem is at this point I still had not dealt with the traumas, the issues that
that
caused
caused
me
the
to
drink.
drink.
We call that a dry drunk.
Yeah, and they gave me tools to fight off the cravings,
Right.
which will only work for so long. People, it
Willpower.
it only works for so long. You know, and it got to the point where we ended up.
Well, with him being a sober drunk,
Yeah.
or what we call white knuckling it. You know, when you're holding on to something so tightly, you know, and you're trying so hard, your knuckles can turn white.
Right.
He was white knuckling it, and when he came back from rehab the first time, that was in January of 2017, and by January of 2019, we separated.
Yeah.
And it was, and he was sober a full year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was sober even when we divorced.
November 4th.
November 4th of 2019.
19.
So, things just got bad.
Yeah.
Even after he came back when he came back from rehab the first time, he hadn't dealt with the issues.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed. I couldn't wait for him to come back because I thought, okay, what is he going to hit me with that was so traumatic in his childhood or in his life that we're going to have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't come back with anything like that. And he didn't come back with any of these self-revelations and I kind of thought, well, what's changed then? You just quit drinking? And so it kind of bothered me. Our relationship was okay for a while, and that's when we really started, we went to marriage counseling.
Yeah.
And that didn't last very long. He wasn't interested in hearing too much of what Pastor Chuck had to, or Bob had to say.
Yeah.
We did that marriage seminar thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I just kept trying and trying and trying, and it was just like I was talking to a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a cruise in January of 19, and on that cruise, he told me he wanted a divorce.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh? You know, it was, he wasn't drinking.
Right.
So there had to be a way to figure this out, right? There had to be a way. God had to fix this. I had been given a word, which I told you guys about when Pastor Sylvia was on with us when we were praying for the hurricane. She had given us a word that we would be in ministry of some kind, that God was really going to use us. Our destiny was to help other people. And when that world came crumbling down, I was like, so he moved out. He was living in Pekin, and I was living in Morton, Emily and I. And I went cray-cray. He went cray-cray.
Yeah.
It was a very weird year, 2019. The divorce, finally it was like in the summer, and I'm like, okay, are we going to divorce? Are we going to try to get back together? What are we doing here? Because it was just, yeah, we wanted to get the divorce. I was starting to date because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to live my life alone. Okay, because that was my fear of being alone. I really had to face some fears during that time. And my kids were growing up and moving out. And Emily graduated in 2017. This was 2019. She was gone.
Yeah.
And so the kids were off on their own doing their thing. Sherman is gone. And I was sitting there going, now what? I spent my entire life enmeshed in my family, which is wrong. Okay? Hey. I was totally enmeshed in him and what he was doing, and trying to control everything in my realm, right? And that wasn't working very well. And so I really had to face some. I really had to face some stuff, and it took me. It was until 2020.
Yeah.
It was until the fall of 2020 when I got serious with God again, and I said, "Okay, I've tried to do all of this on my own," and I walked away, and that was a mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, Lord, I have made a complete mess of my life. I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to give you my life. And so I kind of fast forwarded in my part of the story. We can back up with Sherman, but that year of 2019 was pretty rough, and we went to divorce court, and we're sitting outside the courtroom next to each other,
Yep.
crying. Go into the judge's chambers, and she's looking at us, and she says, "Do you two really want to get this divorce? Because you don't look like a couple that wants this divorce." Right. And tears streaming down my face. I'm like, we have to do this.
Yeah.
We didn't know why. We know why now. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story.
Yeah.
Sherman had another heart attack in January of 2020. So we got divorced. 3 months later, he has another heart attack. He had just started drinking again at Christmas of 2019, and then a month later has another Widowmaker, massive heart attack. Who does he call?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He calls me. And I spent a week with him in the hospital. And get him out, he starts getting back there, and it's like, okay, dude, you cannot live in this dump. I mean, his living conditions was an outward side of a very bad inward problem. And he had spiraled emotionally, like way worse than I had ever seen him. And that was a huge wake-up call. It was like, whoa, dude, something is not right here. So, a couple of months after that heart attack, he started drinking again.
Yeah.
And when he started drinking, he went ham.
Mm-hmm.
This time, he went full bore. And September 15th of 2020
mm-hmm.
came around, and he had been on a
bender.
3-day? 4-day?
4-day.
4-day bender.
4 days.
And he didn't have a heart attack this time. Before we go into that, tell them about the decision that you had to make when you had that heart attack in January, because this is.
So, I'll say this. So, it was early December, somewhere in there. I ended up relapsing on all things mouthwash.
Really?
Yeah. I was going into Caterpillar, and
yes, you do, Bethany.
Yeah, and it's crazy how your alcoholic mind will think, but for some reason I felt my breath was really bad, and I'm like, I'll run to Dollar General and get some mouthwash, okay, and this is something that I had done before, before the first rehab.
Right.
And so I go to Dollar General, I find some mouthwash, and just so you all know, the generic Dollar General mouthwash has 18% alcohol in it. And
who knew?
Yeah,
certainly not me.
And instead of spitting it out, I drank it. And I immediately got that high.
That buzz.
That buzz that you get from the first drink. And that was what kicked it all off again.
I didn't know or realize that.
And I didn't start.
I'm still learning stuff.
Yeah. And I didn't start drinking like a bunch, right? Immediately.
It was Christmas.
But it was closer to Christmas, and I don't know if it was the holidays, what it was. There were some things there that happened, and I started drinking heavy, And the thing about alcoholism, even if you stop, when you relapse and you pick back up exactly where you left off.
Right. Right.
And then it increases drastically immediately at that point. And that's exactly what happened. Where before, the first rehab, I drank almost every day.
Right.
At this point, I was trying to only drink on the weekends. You know, try to control it, manage it better is what I was trying to do. And I was getting to the point where I knew I shouldn't drive. So when the weekends would hit, I would buy what I thought was enough to get me through the weekend. And then when that didn't happen, well, I had a liquor store conveniently
Across the street
in Pekin. There's Hardee's and then Ace Liquor. In fact, I saw it just the other night. I looked at it and I laughed. And I could walk over there and get my booze. And it was January 28th. Or, yeah, it was January 28th. Yes, 28th.
You had been drinking the whole weekend.
I had been drinking the whole week. In fact, I started on Thursday night. I didn't go to work Friday morning. Drank Saturday. Sunday, normally I would stop. Sunday night, Sunday afternoon. So I'm ready to go Monday morning. And I'm like, no, I'm calling in. I called in Monday. Said I'm not going to be at work. And I'm drinking a half gallon of vodka a day. And that's a lot. And
not half a pint.
Not a half pint.
A fifth.
A half gallon. And it was late at night. It was probably about 11 o'clock Monday night on the 28th. And I'm laying on the couch watching some movie. And I felt it in my chest. I felt it coming on. And I'm just kind of like freeze for a moment. And I'm like, okay, is this? Is it not? And it just kept getting worse. And I'm like, yes, it is. This is happening. Okay? Now, at this point, I was becoming hopeless at this point.
We were divorced. You thought I'd be better off with someone else.
Exactly. My life, I was like, my life is done. It's over with. All I'm doing now is providing. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And even then, because of some things that had happened, you know, when I did start drinking again, I was just making a mess of everything. And I'm like, it would be better if I wasn't here, if I wasn't around. And I knew that this was my answer. This was where I could check out.
So you were faced with life or death.
Life or death.
You had to choose.
Yeah. And, you know, here again, an alcoholic, we think everything through. I had the life insurance. But now, if you commit suicide, most life insurance policies don't pay out. But if you die of a heart attack, well, you know, so I'm thinking this is perfect. You know, you'll be provided for. I'm like, this is, you know,
and you get out.
And I get out. I'm free, you know. And it was really coming on pretty good at this point. And they call it a moment of clarity. And it was at that moment, and I'm drunk as a skunk here. Wasted. And it was like, all of a sudden, God said, do you realize how much you will hurt everybody if you allow yourself to die at this moment? And I actually felt the hurt. I would hurt you. I would hurt the kids. I would hurt... my dad was still alive at this time. There's all these people that would be hurt by this. You know, and it was at that moment that I realized that God had been with me, beside me, the whole way. And even though I had pushed him away and told him I wanted nothing to do with him, it was in that moment that I realized he was right there. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I called 911.
Thank you, Jesus.
I remember the fire department and paramedics coming in, and I remember it was the second paramedic coming in. He saw all the empty booze bottles, and he came in and he goes, "Oh my God!" You know, he was just shocked.
Yeah, I saw it too.
It just shocked. And they take me to Pekin. They get me into Pekin, and Pekin's like, "Yes, he's definitely having a heart attack. We can't help him here." So they immediately threw me back into the ambulance and take me to OSF. And
that was a long.
That was a very
very difficult week.
And I coded on the table.
Yep.
Here I am awake. I'm awake during the whole procedure. The doctor's like, "We've got a problem here," and he's like, "Get the paddles," and they're yelling at me to turn my head and cough. And I have no idea what's going on. I don't feel anything at this point. I remember turning my head and coughing. And they're like, "Harder, do it harder," and I did it, and they're like, "Okay, we got you back." And my heart had gone into this spasm, an AFib is what they call it. And by turning your head and coughing, it restarts your heart, I guess. So they didn't have to use the paddles, but
thank God.
But they did have to install a heart pump in me. So there was this pump inside my chest, the cables running out my groin to a machine on the floor. I'm in ICU. They get a hold of you.
You did.
Or maybe I did. And I was in ICU 4 days, 5 days?
5 days.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And then they transferred me. You would have thought that would have stopped me from drinking. Okay? Now, I did stop smoking at that point.
You did.
Because I was 14 days, I think, in the hospital. Maybe it was 12. Whatever it was, I was there long enough to where I'd already gone through all the nicotine withdrawals, and I'm like, why?
And you did that on good drugs.
Yeah, I was on fentanyl.
You did that on good drugs.
Oh, man. It was, June 10th that I ended up back in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. And, you know, it was just constant battle.
6 months.
Yeah.
The enemy was trying. Honestly, when I walked into the hospital from the second heart attack, I was like, okay, here's 2 widowmakers, and you're still here to tell the story. God's not done with you yet.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah.
God has something, or the enemy's tried to take him out many times.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Many times. But praise God, you reached out for help.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you this because I think it's funny.
Okay, we're just going.
I know. I'll speed this up.
Yeah.
So I was gonna do a whole Facebook thing again where I was gonna bash somebody, and I just friended this pastor's wife, and I get this notice on Facebook that says, "Hey, you become friends with so and so. Why don't you reach out and say hi?" And I'm like, "Yes, that is exactly what I need to do." And
I didn't know that.
I still got it on my phone.
Yeah.
And I go to, I'm ready to just unleash on this woman. And it's like the Spirit came over me again, and I just typed in help. That's all I typed in was help. And she responded, "Sherman, just stop drinking. Help is on the way." And who shows up? Her. I'm like, oh no. And
she called my mom.
Yeah.
My mom called me, and I'm like, we're divorced. I should not have to be taking care and putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. Yeah. But I did.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there, and we're talking. He's talking about going to rehab again. And I'm like, if that's what you think you want to do, you know, so we're talking about it. In walks my mom. Sherman takes one look and he goes, "Oh, shiz."
Yeah.
And Mom was like, "What's the deal, dude?"
Yeah.
You know, but we prayed over it, and he made the choice to go to rehab again.
Yep.
And you guys, it's the beginning of the most beautiful story that I think I could ever tell. We've talked an hour and a half about the bad.
Yeah.
But God,
Yeah.
there is hope, there is healing, there is freedom, there is joy, there is peace, there is a wonderful life. And we didn't see it at the time, right? So the instructions was I was going to put him on a plane the next morning to West Palm Beach, Florida. I had to keep him drunk.
She bought my last drink.
I bought his last drink. So they did not want him to start in the detox process too soon because, you know, especially if he's flying. And they put special recommendations with the airline that he was to keep drinking if he wanted to drink. He was on his way to rehab, and I guess this is a known thing. And so I was like,
TSA knew.
Okay. So I bought his last drinks. I kept him drinking. Was up with him almost all night long. Got him to the airport and put him on a plane. And I was like, okay, Lord, he's in your hands. And it was during that time that I made up my mind that I'm done doing this life on my own. I would rather give my life completely to God and let Him direct my path than me try to continue to figure this out, because I was lost. I really was lost. And I made some decisions during that time, and I had quit the children's home, and I was working out at the club, and so at the Sportsman's Club, and I was out in nature every day, and I felt so much closer to God. And I started listening to this woman who's named Kat Kerr, and she started talking about heaven, and she started talking about our soul and what our soul is, and the keys of the kingdom, and what salvation truly means, and everything that Jesus paid for. He didn't just pay for fire insurance. Mm-hmm. He didn't just pay for my eternity. He paid for my here and my now. And I got a revelation of the keys of the kingdom, of whatever we bind on earth has been bound in heaven, and whatever we lose on earth, that sort of thing. I got a revelation on it, and one night, he's in rehab. I laid it all out on the line. And I woke up the next morning a completely different person. And when Sherman went to rehab, I always had people, Sherman was always around, even though we were divorced. He was here for holidays, and we would go out to dinner for the kids' birthdays and different things, right? So there was always some connection there. He never went away. And so while he was in rehab, of course, he was keeping in touch with me, and he's learning some things very similar to what I'm learning. And he met a very dear angel. She was an angel. And she called him on his crap.
Yeah, she did.
She is the only person in this world that looked him square in the eye and said, "You're full of crap." Are you going to get honest with yourself? Because you're lying to me. You're lying to yourself. Are you going to get real?
Yeah. She did.
And he did.
Yeah. And
See, I'm so grateful. I'm so... When we don't talk about the past much,
No,
That's
we
gone.
don't.
Like, and so when we do, it just reminds me how much of a work God has done.
Yeah, it's
You
huge.
know? Yeah.
It's huge. And in that moment, I remember exactly where it happened. Because she would come in and do these morning inspirations, and I'm trying to figure this out, and yeah, this whole time I'd been lying to myself about things, and when she did that, it just kind of made me freeze.
It almost snapped you out.
And
like a slap.
It did.
Like, wake up, dude.
And I'm like, oh my God, I am lying to myself. And all of a sudden, I saw all these lies that I've been telling myself, and all the lies I've been telling everyone else. And that was just a huge revelation, and really, it took me about 2 days of digesting that and seeing all the lies, and then it was forgiveness. The forgiveness part. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I asked God to forgive me of all this stuff. And I knew that God would and did forgive me.
Right.
But now there's a huge part that most people miss. I had to forgive myself.
Big
Oh,
thing.
my word. Okay, now
It's easy to forgive other people, but man.
here's the thing is it was okay for God to forgive me. I could not forgive myself. Okay? And this woman, I remember her telling me, she goes, so what you're saying is you believe God forgave you, but you can't forgive yourself. So then that means you're putting yourself above God. Because now you're saying you're better than God.
Oh, snap.
Oh, that didn't go over well with me.
You're
And
like, well, crap.
I had never thought of that. And I got revelation on that. And I was able to finally start forgiving myself. There was
It's
a
a
whole
process.
there's a whole lot of stuff that had to happen.
It was a big, long process.
But that's how it started. Being honest with myself, and then forgiveness, and then moving into the whole soul cleansing part of this thing.
Going back and in rehab or in AA, emotional healing is basically step 4.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind when Sherman got back from rehab and he was working through his steps, and we kind of started talking more and more and more. What I had done on my own was a step 4. And what I was telling him about and the freedom that I found in myself, he related it to step 4 and started working all of that in himself. And, when we got divorced, a lot of people would say, you two will get back together. You and Sherman will get back together. And I'm like, no. Because it wasn't just the drinking.
Right.
The drinking was very much a big part of the reason that we divorced for my sake. But it was because he couldn't communicate. He couldn't open up. We could not be completely one. It was very much one-sided. He loved me as much as he could. And I always said that. But I would tell people no. I'm like, Sherman and I will always be friends. And I'm like, there's no way we'll get back to... He would have to become a completely different person.
Guess what happened? I surprised myself.
You still surprise me. Sometimes.
And, it was during that freedom of being honest with myself, forgiving myself, and doing this work that I was able to fully expose myself to you, to be completely honest, to be completely open.
It only took a couple of months of that. And we were back together planning a wedding.
Yeah. And, it helps to remember this stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, this is a lifelong journey for us. Okay, I've had some family members of people that I've helped or helping say, well, when will this be all over? When will they be healed and they no longer, have to do anything?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way.
No, no.
This is a lifelong process of God will expose things that then I have to turn around and deal with, and do that soul cleansing, because there's a lot of things that I have forgotten and buried.
Oh, emotional healing is our soul. It's just like that. You sweep something under the rug, you put it back down, but then when you lift the rug to sweep something under there again, all of that stuff from before is still in there.
Yeah.
And that pile just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point that it causes you to be emotionless. It causes you to shut down, or have an addiction, or
Yeah.
become codependent and try to control everybody else's life just to make sure that everything is cool for yourself. The scripture that I had asked the Lord for is 2 Corinthians 5:17. The King James says, if any man be in Christ, saved, he is a new creation. Old things passed away. Behold, all things become new. That was one of the scriptures that drove me nuts.
Yeah.
For years. Because no matter how many times I repented before Jesus, asking him to make things new, to make things different. It's like, Lord, your word says the old things pass away. All things become new. Why is there nothing new in my life?
Yes, exactly.
Because I was still holding on to it.
Exactly.
I was the one holding on to it. I didn't realize. I just thought I thought it was that poof God again.
Poof God.
It was the poof God.
Love the poof God.
I really thought that you repent and poof, everything goes away and everything's better. And for some people, God bless them,
Yeah.
it does work that way. And God knows what we need in our lives. But the poof God was not in our story. One night after Sherman and I got back together, we weren't married yet, and I was just sitting there and I was like, I don't understand why we had to get divorced. And, you knew we were going to get back together. So why did we have to go through all of that? Well, when we got remarried, I took the wedding ring that I had. I should have brought it up. I took the wedding ring that I had been wearing for 10, 15 years, and we went and we put a new guard on it, on both sides. So it made it look new. So we took the old and the new, and we made this new wedding ring, and I loved it. I thought it was so pretty. It looked antique-y. And I was at the club 6 months after we got married, and I looked down, and the diamond was gone. I'd had that ring since 2008. I want to think it was 2008 that you got that ring for me.
Mom and Leroy were living in Eureka.
Yeah, I don't even remember when that was, but I'd had it quite a while. At least 10, 15 years, somewhere in there. But I loved that ring. It was so pretty. And I was devastated. Devastated. And I was in the shower that night, and I'm like, God, I don't understand what happened. Like, why would I lose that diamond? Like, of all things, And he said, I didn't tell you to mingle the old with the new.
Yeah.
And I said, what? He said, you didn't ask me about the ring, you just did it. And I was like, oh, you're right, we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to save money. I wasn't thinking, we didn't pray about it, we didn't ask God about it. He said, You're, you, he said your divorce had to happen. There had to be a death
Yeah.
in order for there to be new life. Old things had to pass away for the new to come. You do not put, and I read this scripture last week, you don't put an unshrunk new patch on an old garment. It'll tear. You don't put something new wine in an old wineskin. It'll ferment and it'll burst and you'll lose all of it. And I said, so he said, your marriage had to be completely new because you two are new people. He's like, go get a new ring. So I went and I got a new ring. And Sherman was like, oh my gosh. It made all the sense in the world.
It did. It really did.
Everything is new. We've been together 35 years, but we've only been married 3.
3. Yeah.
We've 3 years. And we're still learning new things about each other because we are new, different people. We're like that old comfy sweatshirt that you can't get rid of because it's so soft and it's so comfortable, but it's kind of worn, you know. You just don't want to get that new one because that one, he's like that old comfy sweatshirt.
But I will say this, but God, and you know, he's constantly showing us how to trust him. And when when I realized that I had put God into a box, and that was my God, and then I finally let God out of that box.
He got a lot bigger.
And he was like, well, how big do you want me to be? I mean, that was God's question to me. He goes, I can be as big or as small as you want me to be. Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of threw me for a little.
Right, you really have to think about that.
You know, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to ever limit you.
Right, never.
And there are times when I call it my fleshly mind will limit God. Well, you know, this is all the faith I have is up to this point. And then I have to say no. God is a lot bigger than this.
God can do exceedingly and abundantly above all you can ask or think. So he can do greater and bigger and higher than anything we're even capable of thinking. And the dream that I was so devastated and thinking that I lost, 10 years later, here we are.
Here we are.
Never, ever give up on something that God has told you to do.
Right.
Or he has promised you. Because just because all looks lost, it is never, ever over. Never. So I won't ever say never again. I won't ever say never. I choose not to say never to anything again because God did things that just, it still blows my mind that he was able to do. And yes, is it painful to go through the emotional healing?
Yes.
Yeah. You're drudging up old hurts. You're drudging up the past, but you're healing it. And sometimes when you break a bone, it hurts in the healing process a little bit. But the longer you go in the healing process, the less it hurts. And it won't kill you.
No, it won't.
You can only find freedom from going through the emotional healing. And you can find peace and you can find joy. You'll cry some tears. You'll feel some pain. Mm-hmm. There might even be some things that scare you. You know, people fear being hurt emotionally, and it's emotions. They come and they go. Emotions are something you need to feel and then let them go. Emotions are very good things if they are used appropriately. Should they control your thoughts? No. Your mind, your will, and your emotions all need to come together under the word of truth and make your choices not based off fear, but based off faith.
Yeah.
Fear only feeds more fear. Fear will feed emotions to control your actions, to control your thoughts. And so when you do the emotional healing and you get rid of some of that trauma from life, and traumas still come. It doesn't stop life from being lifey. And that's what Sherman and I have been here the last 2 months sharing. Life still gets lifey. But the more you deal with your past traumas, they can't control you moving forward. But if you don't deal with that past, it's going to continue to control all of your steps forward and make you full of anxiety and full of fear. And God is saying, just trust me. Let me heal those wounds from your childhood.
Yeah.
The fact that you weren't heard. God heard you.
Yeah.
You weren't heard. A lot of us Gen Xers suffer from not having been seen or heard. But God was here to tell Sherman and I was there with you.
Mm-hmm.
When we turned our backs on him during that 5-10 years of hell, is what I call it, he was still there. God saw us today. He sees us in our tomorrow. We don't even know what our tomorrow holds. But back then, when things were so difficult, God was seeing us here, knowing that we were going to get to that point. And God sees you that way. But you have to make the choice to trust him, to allow that emotional healing, and to just let go. Let go of the past. As long as you're holding on to the past, you can't move forward.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
That's what.
And you help a lot of people now.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We're an even better team than we were before.
We are.
And now we got Missy Prissy on the scene. So she's going to be our third wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably won't see us unless you see her too. More than likely. So that's our story. Just know our past, there had to be a death in order for there to be a resurrection. You can't bring something to life that's already alive. It has to die before you can bear fruit. What is that scripture? Unless a seed fall to a ground and die, it die alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. I always want to say that in it. I hear Jesse. When a seed falls to the ground, if it gets into the ground, it will die. But then it sprouts and it bears a mustard seed, bears a tree that birds can sit in. Right? So there has to be, you have to crucify the flesh. You have to crucify the past. You have to let it go. You have to just trust God to heal it. Let it go. Forgive others, but most importantly, forgive yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes we want to self-punish, and that's the worst that we can do. If God is not going to punish you, why are you?
Right.
When you want to self-punish, you are saying that the sacrifice that Jesus paid for you wasn't good enough. And we all know that it took care of it.
Yeah.
He gave us the keys of the kingdom. And so I just wanted to give hope. There's hope in healing. There's beauty for ashes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got it. So that's our story. If any of you are actually still here, bless your hearts. It was
a long one.
It was a long one. But and it's not even, we could have gone into so many other stories.
A lot of details.
So many details. It's really hard to give the short version. But is anybody even still with us?
I have no idea.
I can't see if there's anybody still on.
Yeah,
3
yeah.
viewers. No, that's just us. You, me, and this one. Is anybody still on?
Gina might still be on.
Gina, are you still there? We're just talking and talking. What time is it?
We've been
7?
been an
Almost
hour and
2
45.
hours.
Yeah.
Almost 2 hours. Well, we wanted to get this recorded so that in the future.
Bethany.
Oh, Bethany. Okay, she's still here. Mwah. Thanks for hanging in there. Oh, Aunt Deb's still there, so it
Yep.
lied. Okay. Well, Aunt Deb, you knew the story. God love you. We drug you along with us. You went through it as we did. Okay. Can you say hi? Yeah. Missy was sleeping. She was sleeping through it. So, much blessings to you guys, and thanks for hearing our story. I hope that it brings hope and healing to those who hear it.
Yeah.
Just know it's never over.
And
Till God says it's over.
there is a way to freedom.
There is. Are you going to sleep? Her eyes.
Yeah. She's done.
She's been
you guys
sitting on
talk
my
too
lap
much.
sleeping. Aunt Deb said, "Hi, Missy." Yeah, we'll have to FaceTime with Aunt Deb. Oh,
And
oh,
Bethany.
and Bethany. Bethany, I may have to bring her in so you can see her. So, you guys have a blessed night. Much love to you all, and until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.